Diddy has been hospitalized after a brutal attack in prison, and the details are nothing short of shocking. We're talking serious injuries, a hospital bed, and some truly disturbing revelations from witnesses who saw it all go down. You're going to want to stick around for this one, because the truth about what happened behind those prison walls is wild. According to sources, the attack happened swiftly and without warning. Diddy was in the common area of the prison when a group of inmates reportedly ambushed him. The attack was vicious, with multiple blows to the head and body.
Sean Diddy Combs reportedly underwent treatment in a hospital as he continues to await trial on sex trafficking charges. According to Page 6, the 55-year-old was transported from Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, the federal prison where he was sent following his September arrest, late January 30th to undergo an MRI and was then soon returned to police custody later that night. The outlet cites a source as saying that the medical scan was authorized because his knee was bothering him. E! News has reached out to reps for Diddy and the Federal Bureau of Prisons for comment and has not heard back. The Grammy winner's attorney, Mark Agnafilo, tells TMZ, quote, "I cannot comment on anything related to prisoner movements. Also, I'm not commenting on anything related to possible medical issues." Diddy had shared in a since-deleted Instagram post in 2017 that he had undergone his third knee surgery in a year. The Federal Bureau of Prisons has neither confirmed nor denied the reports about Diddy's hospital visit.
By the time guards intervened, Diddy was barely conscious and had to be rushed to the prison's medical facility before being transferred to a nearby hospital. Survivors of similar attacks in the same facility are now coming forward, and their stories are painting a grim picture of life inside. They describe an environment filled with tension, violence, and fear, where an attack like this isn't just possible, but almost inevitable. And while Diddy is a high-profile inmate, this assault highlights a much bigger problem within the prison system.
And as Les Trump reports, the music mogul who once traveled by private jet to all those mansions is now in a jail that is notorious for its bad living conditions.
Music mogul Sean Diddy Combs spent his first night behind bars inside a facility that is being called Hell on Earth. The Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn is notorious for its appalling living conditions and rampant violence. How bad is it inside this federal lockup? There have been 2 murders, 4 suicides, and numerous stabbings and lockdowns in recent years. It's so out of control inside that 4 federal judges are reportedly refusing to send any more prisoners here. Donald Trump's former fixer, Michael Cohen, spent a harrowing year in federal custody. He says for someone used to a life of luxury like Diddy, prison life is a severe shock.
You have a desk, you have a plastic chair, you have your bed with a 1.5-inch mattress, no pillow, and you also have a locker. So you basically have 3 feet by 5 feet.
According to insider sources, the attack occurred earlier this week in the prison yard, where Diddy was reportedly ambushed by a group of inmates. The assault was so violent that Diddy was left with severe injuries, including broken ribs, a fractured jaw, and internal bleeding. He was rushed to the hospital, where he remains in critical condition. Survivors of the attack, who witnessed the incident, have come forward with chilling details about what transpired. It was like a scene out of a movie.
Breaking news right now, Larry. I am just getting word. People magazine says it's got a source on the inside that tells them that P. Diddy's on suicide watch tonight. Do your sources confer the same information? Are they saying it was possible?
Hey, real quickly, all that commissary stuff, he's not getting any of that because people in the SHU have an abbreviated list. So he's out of luck. No stake for him. Yeah, he is on suicide watch. This guy thought he would have went home. All of a sudden, he didn't get bond. Remember, the first night that he was there, he was like an overnight guest. When they told his bond hearing, now they checked him into the system, and reality has hit him. And I understand that he has a shrink coming by his cell to see him several times a day. And now there's talk about putting him in, it's like a bubble. It's like a cell that has like a plexiglass wall in it.
One inmate said. They came out of nowhere and just started beating him. He didn't stand a chance. The injuries Diddy sustained are said to be severe. Sources close to the situation revealed that he has suffered multiple fractures, bruising, and even a possible concussion. Doctors are monitoring him closely. And while his condition is said to be stable, the road to recovery might not be an easy one. The physical wounds are one thing, but the psychological impact of such an attack can be even more damaging.
Following Diddy's arrest, his attorney Mark Agnifilo immediately sounded the alarm on MDC, arguing there are some major issues with the jail, citing violence, poor conditions, overcrowding, and even staffing issues. He also cited some startling statistics. 2 inmates have been killed at MDC since June, and at least 4 inmates have died by suicide over the past 3 years. On top of that, 6 staff members have been charged with crimes over the past 5 years. Even with all these questionable stats, it's still common for defendants to be housed at MDC after their arrest, as they're awaiting trial in either Manhattan or Brooklyn. And the jail is no stranger to high-profile inmates either. MDC famously housed R. Kelly, Ghislaine Maxwell, and Sam Bankman-Fried, who's actually there right now. We've mentioned Sam Bankman-Fried to you in the past. He's the fraudster convicted of money laundering following the collapse of his cryptocurrency exchange, FTX. Sam Bankman-Fried became relevant to Law and Crime's audience.
Social media has exploded with reactions to the news, with hashtags like Diddy Hospitalized and Prison Attack trending worldwide. Fans of the music mogul are expressing shock, heartbreak, and outrage, calling for better protection for Diddy while he's behind bars. Many are questioning how someone as high profile as Diddy could be left so vulnerable in prison. At the same time, critics are pointing to the attack as a stark reminder of the consequences of his alleged actions, with some saying he's facing the reality of his choices.
Indictment was filed on January 30th. Coincidentally, according to the New York Post, that's the same day P. Diddy was taken to a Brooklyn hospital from MDC. MDC is the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. It's where Diddy's been held since his arrest back in September. His team has tried multiple times for bail, but it's always been denied. So that's where Diddy has been for months now, but last week he was taken to the hospital. According to reports from the New York Post, Diddy was transported from MDC in the cover of darkness at about 10 p.m. on January 30th. He was taken to a Brooklyn hospital for an MRI after reporting issues with his knee. This actually isn't the first time we've heard about Diddy's knee either. He's apparently had problems with it since 2003 when he ran the New York Marathon. He even had multiple knee surgeries back in 2017. In a now deleted Instagram post, Diddy shared this photo and wrote, quote, "Just had my final knee surgery. They said I'd never run again. I said the devil is a liar."
What's even more alarming is that some insiders believe this attack might not have been random. There are whispers that Diddy had been targeted for weeks. Some inmates were reportedly jealous of the preferential treatment they believed he was receiving. Others were simply looking to make a name for themselves by attacking a celebrity. Either way, it raises serious questions about the prison's ability to protect its inmates, especially those with a high profile. Let's take a closer look at how this story unfolded.
Basically, the suggestion is if the government knows that an allegation from somebody is false, they need to tell the defense that. Quote, absent a bill of particulars, the government is forcing him unfairly to play a guessing game, one made all the more challenging by the onslaught of baseless allegations that desperate plaintiffs are lodging at him, for the most part anonymously, in civil suits designed to exact a payoff from Mr. Combs and others. Second, given the anticipated amount of discovery and the expected time required for its production, Mr. Combs will be unable to adduce the identities of the purported victims from the discovery without the assistance of the government. Mr. Combs also anticipates that the discovery will contain voluminous evidence of consensual activity, making it all the more difficult for Mr. Combs to ascertain which of his prior partners now claim years later that they felt coerced. Even if it were possible to ascertain the victim's identity from the discovery, and especially given the volume of anticipated discovery, it is unfair to require Mr. Combs to spend significant time trying to unearth the alleged victims' identities.
Diddy, whose real name is Sean Combs, was arrested and charged earlier this year following a series of allegations that have rocked the music industry. The charges range from workplace harassment to more serious claims of abuse, and the case has been one of the most closely watched legal battles in recent memory. Diddy has consistently denied the allegations, calling them false and defamatory, but his life in prison has become a focal point of the ongoing drama. The prison administration has launched an investigation into how this happened.
I remember back in October when Tony Busby held that press conference saying that he had more than 100 accusers ready to file lawsuits against Diddy. Why do you think, there's this kind of rush, it feels like, to file complaint after complaint after complaint, all before that March 1st deadline? How much are you surprised by the timing of it instead of just kind of trickling it out? I mean, I guess he has been doing that as well, too. But are you surprised more so that so many are coming day after day after day?
I'm not surprised, Elizabeth, and this is why. And this goes back to sexual abuse and statute of limitations being open. It really happened when the Catholic Church sex abuse scandal broke in Boston, and states decided to open up the statute of limitations for these sexual assault and sexual abuse claims. Some states actually opened it up for both criminal and civil, and the criminal statute of limitations, at least in California where I am, was litigated and it was struck down instead of violated the
They're looking into surveillance footage, interviewing witnesses, and trying to determine whether there was a failure in security protocols. And let's not sugarcoat it. If this was an inside job or if guards turned a blind eye, heads are going to roll. And while Diddy is currently receiving medical treatment, his legal team is reportedly exploring options to get him transferred to a different facility. They're arguing that his safety can no longer be guaranteed, and honestly, they might have a point.
But this time it was a lot smaller bunch than it was the last time. So last time you're having all of Diddy's children, except with the exception of Love, who is just a 2-year-old child, so she wasn't at court. But you had all of Diddy's children there except Love. But this time around, you just had Justin Combs and Christian Combs, meaning that there was no Quincy there today. Delilah and Jesse weren't there. Chance wasn't there, and the caretakers of his younger children who aren't of age just yet, they were not present inside the courtroom as well today. But his mom also wasn't in court today. So when Diddy came inside, it was still that standard issued MDC jumpsuit. He's wearing khaki. From that video of, I think that was obtained by Daily Mail back in September, of Diddy playing hacky sack in Central Park, to now he appeared just astonishingly thinner, which you can expect to be inside a federal detention center for a couple months now. A lot different from the luxury lifestyle that he was living before, but he appeared very noticeably thinner.
If a high-profile inmate like Diddy can get attacked in such a brutal way, it doesn't exactly inspire confidence in the prison's security measures. The survivors of the attack, who spoke exclusively to insert media outlet, revealed chilling details about the incident. According to them, the attack was premeditated and carried out by a group of inmates who saw Diddy as a high-profile target. They wanted to make a statement. One survivor said, "They kept saying, 'This is what happens when you think you're untouchable.'"
What's interesting about this situation? It's the sexual assault civil allegation filed by Grace O'Marquez. This is against Christian Combs, as you're referring to it. And Diddy is a co-defendant in this case because she says he facilitated it. It was on a yacht that Diddy had rented. But it was Christian, the one who allegedly sexually assaulted her. So how does all of that relate? The fact that we have Diddy, who's also part of this, but it's mostly on Christian in this instance?
Yeah, in this particular instance, like you said, it did take place on a yacht. She was someone who was working at the time, and Little Rod was there apparently, and obviously he's a plaintiff in a civil lawsuit himself. But whenever you are a plaintiff in a civil case, you obviously want to go after someone with the ability to pay. That's what we call a deep pocket. So even though Diddy might not have personally participated in this alleged incident,
the survivors also revealed that Diddy tried to fight back but was quickly overwhelmed by the sheer number of attackers. He was outnumbered and outmatched. Another witness said, "It was brutal." Meanwhile, the public reaction to this news has been intense. Social media is flooded with reactions, some expressing sympathy for Diddy, while others are less forgiving. It's no secret that Diddy's legal troubles have divided opinions, but regardless of how you feel about his past actions, no one deserves to be attacked like this.
Back in October, what were the risks? First of all, as the prosecution wrote in October, quote, "Courts routinely reject requests for victim identities in cases involving crimes of violence and racketeering, especially when the government demonstrates a risk to witness safety, the potential for witness intimidation, or subornation of perjury." And here, the prosecution argued there is, quote, "serious, well-supported allegations of prior attempts to obstruct and tamper with witnesses," basically on the part of Sean Combs. In fact, they cited the ruling from a prior judge who denied Sean Combs bail, writing, quote, "Having found by clear and convincing evidence at the conclusion of the second hearing the defendant is a danger regarding obstruction of justice and witness tampering, and is a danger to the safety of others in the community more generally." And we all recall, prosecutors have alleged that Combs tried to improperly contact witnesses.
Friends and associates of Diddy have been quick to express their outrage, calling the situation unacceptable and inhumane. They argue that Diddy, despite the allegations against him, deserves to be treated with basic human dignity and protected from harm. However, others close to the case suggest that Diddy's struggles in prison are a direct result of his alleged actions and the notoriety surrounding his case. Legal experts weigh in, suggesting that the attack could have serious implications for Diddy's legal battle.
They also cite the infamous case of R. Kelly in support of their argument. Remember when R. Kelly was convicted in New York federal court of his own racketeering case for the sexual exploitation of children, forced labor, and transporting women and girls to engage in illegal sex acts? Well, the prosecutors in Sean Combs' case, they're telling this Judge Arun Subramanian, who's overseeing Sean Combs' case, they say, look what happened in R. Kelly. In R. Kelly, the court rejected his request for a bill of particulars identifying the victims' identities because of his own history of obstructing, intimidation, and witness tampering. Essentially, they're saying the same thing is happening here. Okay, so now let's go back to this recent letter from the prosecutors, from the government, from February 21st, this letter to the court. And again, this is where the prosecution argues that the defense is not entitled to a bill of particulars identifying victims and identifying witnesses. So after citing how identifying,
potentially swaying public opinion and even influencing the judge's decision. But here's where things get even more intense. Some former inmates of the same facility are speaking out, revealing that this isn't the first time a high-profile inmate has been attacked. They describe a culture of violence and intimidation where even the guards can sometimes look the other way. It raises the stakes not just for Diddy, but for the entire prison system. Could this attack lead to a larger investigation into the facility's practices?
warrants themselves were also grossly overbroad. On a theory that Mr. Combs' entire life was a criminal enterprise, the government sought virtually all limitless authority to seize any evidence related to that enterprise, all his digital devices, and the information they contained. All information in his iCloud accounts, plus troves of records and items in his houses, almost none of which was contraband. By the way, interesting they say almost none of which was contraband. Does that indicate that there was some stuff found that could be considered to be contraband? They go on to say that perhaps the thing that's most troubling is the government received essentially limitless authority to search Mr. Combs' digital devices, which contained a vast trove of personal information. The Supreme Court and Second Circuit have repeatedly warned that it is essentially important that digital device searches must be limited and particularized. The warrants here were not. The warrants were thus unconstitutional general warrants, and the evidence obtained through those warrants must be suppressed.
It's a real possibility. Reports also suggest that Diddy's attackers might have been part of a larger gang operating within the prison. These gangs often use violence as a means to establish dominance and send a message. And given Diddy's celebrity status, attacking him would have been seen as a major power move. This development has prompted authorities to consider whether there might have been an orchestrated effort to target him. This isn't just a story about Diddy. It's about the broader issues of safety and accountability within the prison system.
And what about that interlocutory appeal? What is that, by the way? So that's basically an appeal of a judge's order about a specific issue while the main case is still going on. So you're appealing an issue while the case still proceeds, but if that issue is heard and decided by a higher court, it can definitely have an effect on the entirety of the case. So here, for example, with respect to an interlocutory appeal, it's about moving the case to state court from federal court. So as the court's order mentions, interlocutory appeals, they are, quote, granted sparingly and only in exceptional cases. But there's a bigger issue why an interlocutory appeal doesn't work here. The court writes, granting permission for an interlocutory appeal would not accelerate the conclusion of this litigation because this litigation has now reached a final conclusion. Accordingly, plaintiff's motion for permission to file an interlocutory appeal is denied. Basically, it's moot. It's over. There's no point of it. Then there's the third order on sanctions.
The attack has sparked important conversations about how high-profile inmates are treated and whether the system is equipped to protect them. Some are calling for reforms to ensure that all prisoners, regardless of their status, are kept safe from harm. Others argue that Diddy's situation is a consequence of his alleged actions and that he must face the realities of prison life. And it's not just Diddy who is affected. Other high-profile inmates are reportedly on edge, worried that they could be next.
Many documentaries out now about Sean Combs, aka Diddy, and with so many new documentaries, now there's new accusations, there's new allegations. But let's break down Phil's claims with criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Julie Rendelman. Julie, always so great to see you. What's your reaction to Phil Pines' claims? He says that part of his job was to clean up these wild king nights or these freak-offs, as well as prove his loyalty by having sex with a woman in front of Diddy.
Anytime an individual comes forward, whether it be on a documentary or the like, and speaks out, in this case, in regards to Sean Combs, I think we always have to look at things objectively. And I say that because this is someone who has filed a lawsuit, along with many others, against Sean Combs. And so we have to recognize that there is an interest in the outcome of the case. There's a potential bias. That doesn't mean he's not telling the truth, but I think it's important for everyone when they're viewing any of these witnesses.
The prison administration has increased security measures, but questions remain about how effective these measures will be. For Diddy's legal team, this could serve as additional leverage to argue for his transfer to a safer facility. And honestly, it could work in his favor. The story is now making national headlines, with news outlets picking up on the brutal nature of the attack. Legal experts are weighing in, suggesting that if Diddy's safety cannot be guaranteed, his team might push for home confinement or a transfer to a lower security facility.
Judge Arun Subramanian's order that came down yesterday, what did he decide? Well, Judge Subramanian denied the defense's motion to amend the protective order, but without prejudice, meaning this issue could be revisited. So Subramanian's order reads, quote, while the government objects to handing the videos over, they provide several options for a defendant to consider that would permit the defense to view the videos, access the information they're looking for, and even allow them to manipulate the videos as they see fit. To the extent these options are insufficient, the defense may propose other options to the government. It doesn't appear that the defense did this before raising the issue with the court. The parties should have these discussions, and if they really reach an impasse, the defense can come back to the court. And if that happens, they should be prepared to clearly articulate why they need possession of the videos despite the options furnished by the government.
While that might seem like a long shot, stranger things have happened in the legal system, especially when celebrity status and safety concerns collide. As the case continues to unfold, one question looms large. What's next for Diddy? Will the attack lead to changes in his prison conditions, or will he continue to live in fear? And how will this incident impact his legal case and public image? For now, all eyes are on the hospital and the prison system as the world waits to see how this story will unfold.
All of them are, but it's a shame because the ones that are real sexual assault cases, I think, get negated by the ones that, like Tony Busby filed against Jay-Z. And that's a real problem. It is a real problem. I see the point of both sides. I see where someone doesn't want to expose their name, but at the same time, they want to sue somebody for wrongdoing. I think that if you're going to sue someone for wrongdoing and you're going to make allegations against an individual, especially as serious as this, I think you should be prepared to use your own name. I think that should be a requirement here. I do understand the balancing, but I also think that there's a greater good here that you can look at these lawsuits through the higher scrutiny that have been filed over and over and over again. It's just, there's so many of these lawsuits that you're really starting to get numb to the allegations.
And then there's the financial side of things. If the prison is found to have been negligent, Diddy could potentially file a lawsuit for damages. Considering his high-profile lawyers, you can bet they're exploring every possible angle. They've already begun gathering statements from witnesses, and if they can prove that the prison failed in its duty of care, this could become a major legal battle. At the same time, advocacy groups are getting involved. They're calling for an independent investigation into the attack and questioning whether the prison is equipped to handle vulnerable inmates.
These lawsuits essentially echo what we have heard in the past, the allegations that have been pled in the past, and other lawsuits by other attorneys, including Mr. Busby himself, which is that Mr. Combs engaged in sexual activity or violent sexual activity towards, Jane or John Doe's or specific individuals, and also that, these individuals may have been drugged. They may have engaged in sexual acts with other people against their will. So this is not a surprise. This is consistent all the way around with the previous lawsuits we've heard about. It also echoes some of the information that we know, or possible facts that we know, will be raised in the federal prosecution. So this is not a surprise at all.
Yeah, and Tony Busby said he planned to file about 10 lawsuits in the next week, pretty much before that March 1st deadline, the last day the New York law allows victims to file civil lawsuits despite the expired statute of limitations. So talk to me a little bit about that law, and possibly if that law didn't even exist, would we even be having this conversation right now?
These groups argue that regardless of an inmate's status, their safety should be a top priority. This kind of attention could push the authorities to take action and possibly lead to systemic changes within the prison. What do you think? Was this attack an isolated incident, or is there a bigger issue at play within the prison system? Do you think Diddy's legal team will be able to get him moved to a safer location? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.